One of the more popular videos that I did back in the day was on attendance in the NHL over the last 10 years. And so today I thought, you know what? Dallas is losing it. I might as well start putting up a madness board to take my mind off how frustrating it is. So here we go. And I'm wearing a Chicago Blackhawks jersey because over the last 10 years, Chicago has been number one and routinely drawing over 100% of arena capacity. How do they do this? They do it through standing room only tickets. So you don't get a seat, you get to come in, you get to watch, standing room only. And so there are a lot of teams that are at the top that have that. There are teams at the bottom that try to give away tickets and aren't always successful. But there are some good stories in here, and so I thought we might as well get to them. First off, the average attendance in the league has been remarkably consistent. Now, it came down from 17,516 to 17,446 last year. So what I wanted to do was show that Vegas is not the reason that it dropped. So you added Vegas to the league. The attendance dropped ever so slightly. Vegas actually drew 18,042 during their first year, 18,318 during their second year. They have been remarkably consistent. And all I did was take the NHL's figures, divide them by the number of games played, and that gives you your average attendance. So average attendance, 17,456 this season, 2018-2019. The highest it's been, 2012-2013, the lockout shortened season, 17,767. What was interesting about this, of course, was that during that lockout, there were lots of fans like, I'm not coming back this time. Nope, the NHL's lost me this time. Nope, that's it, we're done. And then the attendance was higher than ever when the NHL came back, proving that we're all liars. We always say, we're not coming back, and then when the hockey starts getting played, we're like, we're back, quick, don't drop the puck yet, we got to get to our seat. So that's the way that works. And the interesting thing, too, is to look back to 2009-2010. So this is 10 years ago. Chicago's number one, Montreal's number two. Chicago and Montreal are still 1 and 2. So the idea that attendance is driven just by success, not really. Montreal hasn't been in a Stanley Cup final or anything like that, and they are routinely 2, sometimes 3, but almost always 2. 9 out of 10 years they're second. The 1 year they dropped. Detroit was at second with 22,149. Currently, Detroit, despite their team not being very good, they're down to 5th overall in the league in attendance. And it is worthy of note that being an older team, as in an older franchise, seems to help. Detroit is 3rd, 2009-2010. Like I said, they're 5th now. Philadelphia is 4th with 19,535. This past season, 20,371. Kudos to Philadelphia for coming out and supporting the product, even though they haven't had a whole lot of success since 2010. Calgary, 19,289. Not on the board currently. And, of course, there's all the talk about they need a new building and they can't draw. At least they can't draw enough to make money because they don't have the big skyboxes and all this other fun stuff that modern arenas have, so they need to replace the Saddle Dome. I don't know if that keeps some people away, but Calgary was one of the best teams in the league this year, and yet they're not top 6 in attendance. Toronto rounds it out with 19,260. They were actually 4th this year with 19,276. And again, you see some differences in the numbers with Toronto. They've been sellouts. It's just been a matter of how many standing room only tickets they're selling. 2016-2017, for instance, Toronto had 19,744. And what's interesting is, again, your lowest number here is 19,260. Right now, your lowest number on this top 6 is 19,092, which is a sellout crowd for Tampa, which has been pretty standard for, I think it's 4 years now where they've sold out every game. So this is why when people say, hockey doesn't work in the South, people can just point at Tampa and go, yeah, it kind of does. Pittsburgh, of course, 2016-2017, right off a Stanley Cup. They're at 19,762. Tremendous attendance. Pittsburgh is known for being kind of a fair weather fan base, which is part of what made me decide to do this. Because right now the Carolina Hurricanes, again, under they draw the ire, I should say, of the of Carolina Hurricanes' biggest critic, Don Cherry, who says they're basically bandwagoning fans. Now, Carolina, not in the bottom six here. Not in the bottom six. Not in the bottom six. They don't show up in the bottom six in attendance until 2014-2015. So they're not in the playoffs any of these seasons, but it finally starts to draw on them 2014-2015 when they're at 12,594. And they drop to 12,203, then down to 11,776. Last year, they actually went up to 13,220, which is when Tom Dundon takes over. And this year, they're at 14,322. And, of course, they're in the conference finals against either, at this point, as I'm recording this, Boston or Columbus. So their numbers have definitely gone up. Over the last couple years, they've gained about, almost 3,000 fans per game over where they were. And what's impressive about that number for Carolina is that the number was low at the start of the year. New ownership has definitely taken them in a new direction, and Carolina's proven in the past that they will support a team. So which teams stay near the bottom or in the bottom six? Well, it's hard to see the Islanders moving out of the bottom six. And, of course, the Islanders have a new building coming up that should do exactly that. But they're at the bottom this year. They're at the bottom last year. They're near the bottom, This 2014-2015, they finished with 15,334 as their average attendance. I believe that was the year they made the playoffs and knocked out Florida in the first round. And before that, 14,740, 13,306, 13,191, 11,059, 12,735. This number for the New York Islanders is the lowest number we see over the last decade. Now, a lot of this has to do with being at Barclays. A lot of it has to do with being out of the playoffs and kind of directionless. Look at the bottom six. The New Jersey Devils, out of the playoffs. Ottawa, out of the playoffs. Carolina, in the playoffs. In the as I said, the conference finals, I'm recording this. Arizona, missed. Florida, missed. Islanders made the playoffs, but again, there's a building issue going on that they're going to resolve when they build the new building. So 4 of the bottom 6 did not make the playoffs. And so there is something to be said for the idea that if you make the playoffs, build it, they will come. Winnipeg shows up in the bottom 6 a lot, but I'm going to defend Winnipeg on this because their arena has the smallest capacity of any arena in the NHL. I have said from the beginning, since they went back there, that MTS Center does make me nervous because of the fact that it is a small arena by NHL standards. Now, it is true that the arena seats that don't exist, that 2,000 or 3,000 or 7,000 that you see with Chicago, that don't exist, those are going to be your cheap seats, but it does mean that you pay more if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan to go to games than you do if you're in Chicago. At least that's the way that the ticket prices should work. I didn't get into ticket prices for this because when you look into ticket prices, it is a very odd thing to try to, like, you're trying to compare ticket prices, but there's so many tickets that end up on the secondary market, and then you're looking at demand on the secondary market, which is not the same as NHL's ticket prices at face value. So you may very well have, tickets in Vegas are $50 each, but then they sell out, and that secondary market, suddenly they're $200-$300 a piece. And I'm just using that as an example. Now, the teams that are, I'm kind of surprised to see in the bottom. I'm always surprised whenever Colorado drops into the bottom because, to me, Denver just works as a hockey city. So you see Colorado here, 14,835. Colorado here, 15,444, which is pretty good. But this is the season where everybody came out because the lockout had shortened the season. So the smallest number that year is 13,306, which is high compared to a lot of the other numbers on this board. And even at the top of the board, you've got 3 that are 20,000 and above. The funny thing is, the numbers at the top aren't really that far out of the norm. It's the teams at the bottom that there's more demand. Columbus is a team that I'm surprised to see in the bottom as often as they are. 13,658, 14,660, 14,564, 14,690, and then over here 14,665. After the 2014-2015 season, they avoided being in the bottom 6. They have not been in the bottom 6 over the last 3 years, and that's because they're a playoff team. So, there's a lot of people who might be saying, Carolina, they're just bandwagoners. That's kind of the way it works. Look over here, 2013-2014, Vancouver, 19,770. Rockin' arena that year. You're not anywhere near that this year with Vancouver because the team's not very good. So Vancouver is likely never going to be in this range, but Vancouver's not going to be in the top either if the team isn't very good. You've got major metropolitan centers with Chicago, with Philly, with Detroit. Tampa, obviously very, very invested in their hockey team. And Montreal and Toronto are passionate, large Canadian hockey fan bases. So when we get into these numbers and the teams that are at the bottom and the teams that are at the top, well, how many are in non-traditional markets? You've got Carolina, Arizona, and Florida, and that continues that narrative that these teams just won't support it. These fan bases won't support a team. Now, for Arizona, worthy of defending Arizona on this one, Arizona actually had the best number they have had for their attendance this year since, I'm looking back in the last 10 years. So the closest you get is 2013-2014 when they had 13,775. This year, they actually had the best attendance figures the Arizona Coyotes have had in a decade. Now, that doesn't decide whether a team makes or doesn't make money, and people point that out, like, well, attendance figures don't tell you the whole story. No, but sometimes it gives you an idea as well of who's selling more merchandise. So the teams that are at the bottom, any bets on whether or not they might be one of the lower sellers when it comes to jerseys? Which might be why Arizona toys with the Kachina as much as they do. Carolina's looking at a redesign. Florida recently changed their logo altogether. And the New Jersey Devils went ahead and changed up the striping on their jerseys when they switched over to Adidas. Never rule out a franchise's willingness to try to get some more money out of the fan base. Just ask Vancouver fans who may be asked to buy 4 different jerseys this year. You've got the skate throwback they're going to do for the 50th anniversary. They're going to redesign their home and away jerseys, and they will have a brand new third jersey they've never used before. And depending on who you ask, either they may just change the neckline, they may just remove the Vancouver word mark off the Vancouver jerseys, or it may be something completely different. They may go back to stick and rink. They may use the skate. Like, holy crap. So a lot of what we see when we see the thirds and the alts is it's a marketing thing to try to bolster teams that may not be selling very well. Well, Vancouver right now, I know Pettersson jerseys are huge, but you got to think Vancouver sales overall would sag with the fact the team hasn't been in the playoffs for years, and the Sedins are gone. So those big name guys who were there for 20 years are gone. So I get a little more cynical when I hear, oh, they're changing their jerseys. Well, of course they are. And of course, the Chicago jersey I'm wearing, the rumor is that this neckline's going to change so that it doesn't look like you're a priest when you're out skating around for the Chicago Blackhawks. And they just have to take this and turn it red. That's it. They don't need to do a whole lot else with it. But that's a whole other conversation for a whole other time. I think the remarkable thing with the NHL is that they seem to have made the right decision in not moving teams. And that's a video that's been garnering a lot of attention again lately, is my video on odds of any team getting moved. And my wife even said to me recently, she said, maybe you should update that. And I said, nothing's changed. There's been no change in terms of franchises and their stability. There's been a lot of talk of Arizona to Houston, but I haven't heard that talk through proper channels. I haven't heard that talk through the NHL insiders that I follow. So to me, it's all speculation until the NHL actually lets something slip, or somebody who's in the know says, actually, Andrew Barroway has sold the team and they're going to Houston. Until I actually hear it, I don't read a whole lot into it. I think with the added attendance, I think with the run they made towards the end of the year, I think with Rick Tocchet as coach, I think there's going to be enough excitement regarding the Arizona Coyotes that I think they'll move up. Will they end up out of the bottom 6? Probably not. Does Winnipeg end up back in the bottom 6? The funny thing is, when Winnipeg's in the bottom 6, it means that attendance is actually up. Because Winnipeg's doesn't change. So any year that you see Winnipeg, especially like here you see Winnipeg down near the bottom, down near the bottom, it's now these two are before changes were made to MTS, because there's 13,469 here, 13,607, but here it's 15,004, 15,004, 15,004, 15,037, 15,294. So whether they've added a few extra seats here and there or they've added some standing room, they've managed to find a way to get some extra figures in there. But towards the start here of the... Well, actually, no. That's Atlanta. Why would that have been listed as Winnipeg? That would be Atlanta. Why would that be listed? Seriously, I got these numbers from the NHL site. Why would they list... Or no, I got it through ESPN. ESPN would have updated it. Anyway, so that would have been Atlanta. Disregard that. Forget it. So they moved over to MTS, 15,004. And they've moved up since then. But yeah, any year after this, it means that to be in the bottom, you have to have drawn 15,000 or less, and in some cases here it's 14,835, 14,834, and yeah, New Jersey has a hard time drawing. New Jersey, where's their arena? People don't like where their arena is, right? Ottawa, fans don't like no, I don't like where the arena is. People won't attend it because of where the arena is, except when they do, because the team's pretty darn good. It was, back then, 19,356. Pretty good then. Now we're down to 14,553. And for Ottawa fans who say, well, we're just not going to show up because of Melnyk, you're feeding into a narrative. If you believe that Melnyk wants to move the team at some point, you're feeding that narrative by not showing up. And it is interesting, Carolina, decent building for them. It's pretty full right now. 19,000 being drawn for playoff games. Bandwagoners, of course, because everybody is. The excitement level, and I say this as somebody who lives, not too far from Vancouver. When the Canucks are in the playoffs and it looks like they might do something, the excitement level's through the roof. Everybody wants tickets. Everybody talks about going to the games. All social media, all your buddies who live in the area are all going to Canucks games. Right now, no. I'm going to a Canucks game. It's the first one I've been to in years. That makes sense. So that's definitely a thing. Florida, there's been talk about where Florida's building is and whether or not they can draw with where it is in Sunrise. The Islanders are getting a new building, and Arizona's been desperately seeking to move for years. But that move is not necessarily the one people expect. The expectation being, well, they're going to move to, Houston or somewhere else. I really think people are going to be disappointed in the end. I have a funny feeling that the NHL is going to find somewhere in Arizona where you can host games, an arena that'll work, where ticket sales are going to be higher, and magically it's going to work. Now, what would help is if Arizona was a good team for the first time since 2012. 2012, I want to say, 2013. It's been a while since they were what I would consider to be a really good team. And then I could look and say, yeah, maybe they'll do something. And then in terms of actual success, they've had one playoff run since they moved to the desert. It's not all on the fans. A lot of it's with the organization as well. Stanley Cups. The last one won by New Jersey was in 2003. The Ottawa Senators, their last Stanley Cup was about a century ago, and it was not this Senators franchise. It was the previous one. Carolina last won a Stanley Cup in 2006. Arizona, never even been to the finals. One conference final appearance. Florida, one Stanley Cup final back in 96. They have struggled to do anything since then. And for the Islanders, it's been limited success since 1984, the last time they reached the Stanley Cup finals. So that's why the whole fair weather fan thing I don't necessarily agree with. But which of the teams that are currently in the bottom six are going to stay there? Which ones will move up? That's the question mark. And the overall attendance staying where it is, and Vegas bringing it up. I guess one thing I'm wondering too is with Key Arena and Seattle coming in, how much higher does that push things? So there you go. Just an interesting look at attendance over the last 10 years, which includes Atlanta apparently. I didn't think of that while I was putting it on the board either. I haven't been back in Winnipeg for 10 years yet. But hey, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.